What's up, guys? It's me, Grey Wolf, back to do another video for you. Today's video is not necessarily RC related, although the same principles that are going to be used in this video can be applied to RCs. So for this video, what we're going to do is we're going to repack one of my battery packs for my cordless drill. I bought a Ryobi 9.6 volt cordless drill a little while back, a couple years ago I guess it was, and basically I didn't realize that the charger for the battery packs was not like a smart charger. It didn't shut off after the pack was full, and essentially what happened was I ended up cooking my NiXX cells inside the packs to the point where in order to use them you pretty much have to charge them up and then use them every time you go to use it. You got to charge it up. So anyway, I bought some new cells, and I'm gonna repack the inside with new cells. And I've pitched the old charger that came with the cordless drill, because now that I'm into electric RCs, I don't need it anymore. I can charge using alligator clips. I can charge my drill packs with my LiPo chargers, on a NiXX setting, and then that way, it doesn't cook the cells and all that good stuff, and I can cycle them and just generally keep them in better health. So with that in mind, like I said, that's not necessarily RC related, but the same RC principles can be applied, or the same principles can be applied to RCs, in the sense that you can use these techniques here to make your own RX packs. You can make actual NiXX or even nickel metal hydride packs to power your kits. Although if you use nickel metal hydride, make sure it's a high capacity discharge. If your intent is to build a pack to power anything with a motor in it, pretty much most of your nickel metal hydride packs are not capable of putting out the same level of amperage that NiXX is. Of course, the one drawback to NiXX, if you don't know this already, is that NiXXs need to be completely discharged before they're charged. Whereas nickel metal hydrides can certainly benefit by cycling them, but don't necessarily need it, and certainly don't need to do it every time. High capacity discharge NIMH packs will cost more than NiXX packs. That's another drawback to them. Although in my experience, nickel metal hydride does tend to hold a little bit better charge than NiXX, if it's just sitting in storage, for example. But at any rate, my packs that we're repacking had NiXX cells in them, sub-C size. And if you're not familiar with sub-C, and most people probably aren't, sub-C is just a size that is used a lot in in battery packs. They like to use sub-Cs in like any of your battery packs that you see for your cars, for your RC cars and trucks, are going to be sub-C size typically. Almost all drill packs that I've ever seen are sub-C size batteries. There's actually a lot of different sizes of batteries that people just don't see, because they're not your typical consumer sizes. Your typical consumer sizes, are of course AAA, AA, C, D, but they've actually got all kinds of different sizes in between those sizes. Like they have, for like sub-C sizes, they have sub-C, which is a little bit smaller than C, at least in diameter. I'm not sure. I think they may be a tad shorter too, but they're a little bit smaller. But then they also have like 2/3 sub-C size, which is the same diameter as a sub-C, only 2/3 the size, the height. And then the same thing goes for like AA's. You got AA's, you got 4/5 AA's, you got 2/3 AA's. They actually have a cell size that's just a single A, but all those weird sizes that I'm mentioning here are usually found inside of packs. They're not typically sold for consumer products. At any rate, enough about that. Let's take a look at some of the stuff that we're going to need to pull off a project like this. Okay, so I'm going to switch cameras here, and now we're going to be looking overhead. As you can see right here, I've got a few of the subsea 20. These particular ones happen to be 2200 milliamp cells, which I believe was the same capacity that was originally in the drill. I was hoping it was. I don't know. At any rate, the drill was either 1800 or 2200. I can't remember. The particular batteries we have here to work with are 2200 NiXX. I picked NiXX because that's what was in it before, and like I said, NiXX, you know, are better suited for running higher amperage stuff like, you know, the motor in a cordless drill, for example. We are going to need a soldering iron or soldering gun. Your soldering iron is going to have to be capable of temperatures in the 800 to 850 range. The higher the better. You can also use like an actual soldering gun that, like I have one that's 100. You know, it's one of the dual setting guns. It's either 100 or 150. I'm sorry, 100 or 140 watts. But the gun I find is a little unwieldy to work with. My soldering iron happens to get hot enough to do the job, so I'm happy using my soldering station. I have a Track Power TK950, which is also a rebadged Hakko 936, if you're familiar with those. The newer Hakko FX, I want to say it's the 888, that would kind of replace the 936, is probably powerful enough to do this. Any of your Weller stations that, you know, can go up to, my station actually goes up to 896 degrees is the highest rating on it. I find that you know, 8 to 850 is actually sufficient. But at any rate, you're going to need a soldering iron or a soldering gun that's capable of basically melting the solder to the tops of the batteries without being applied for more than 3 or 4 seconds. You do not want to apply heat to a battery cell for more than 3 or 4 seconds, and preferably not even that long if you can get away with it. The shorter the heat exposure, the better. Most battery manufacturers will tell you that you're really not supposed to solder to the battery, but as long as you don't subject the battery to an extended amount of heat to the point where it makes the cell hot, then you're fine. Most manufacturers actually, and the reason I chose these cells is because they have the tabs soldered on here already. Or actually, they're not soldered on. Manufacturers will spot weld tabs in between the cells when they make battery packs, because it's basically instant. Yes, it's a tremendous amount of heat, but it literally happens in a fraction of a second, and it doesn't really expose the rest of the cell to the heat, just the one area. So we kind of want to try to do that with our iron too, as much as possible. At any rate, moving on. You're probably going to want a pair of needle nose pliers, simply because I use these to basically hold the tab down while I solder it, because the tab is going to become very hot. You're not going to be able to hold it with your hand, and you want to make sure it stays in position until the solder solidifies. You may or may not need wire cutters. For these particular battery packs, I am going to need wire cutters, mostly just to cut these tabs off of these batteries, but I'll cover that here in a minute. Probably going to need a screwdriver of some sort to take your battery packs apart with. My battery packs actually had security screws in them that had the square head. I didn't have any of the square heads, so I just took a flathead, a smaller flathead that was big enough to fit like sideways in the square head. Took those screws out, took them down to my local hardware store, and got basically the same size screws in a Phillips head, so that way I can use a normal Phillips size screwdriver to take them out. Probably going to need some wire cutters, or wire strippers rather, for the wires that connect from the battery pack to the tabs on the external part of the pack itself. You may or may not need a multimeter. It's a good idea to have a multimeter on hand in case you know, you get a bad solder joint or something and you got to troubleshoot down to where the problem is. It's nice to have one of these on hand. You're probably going to need some helping hands. I find helping hands to be really helpful for pre-tinning the tabs. And you're also going to need some kind of insulator. Now this I bought from onlybatterypacks.com, and it's made by 3M. It's essentially an adhesive insulating strip. It's kind of like a thin cardboard, but it's got a backing you can peel off of it, and it's sticky. And as you can see, I've already actually outlined my packs, because you're going to want to put a layer of this on the top of the pack and a layer like this on the bottom of the pack to keep them insulated, theoretically, so they don't short out on anything. Now, typically, especially the bottom of the battery pack is probably not as critical, at least in my case, because the bottom of the casing for the battery is plastic, so it can't really. It would be hard for it to short out. But I'm going to put them on top and bottom anyway, because that's how they came from the factory, and I like to do things as thoroughly as possible. So we're probably going to need that. So I'm going to cut away here for a second and get this stuff cleared off, and then I'll be back with the first step in making our battery packs. Alright guys, quick little segment here. When I was going over all the stuff that you'll need previously, just a minute ago, I left out a couple of things. One thing that you're going to need are what's called battery bars. You can get them off of eBay. You can probably get them at various battery retailers or whatever online. I got mine off of eBay. I'm not sure. Only Battery Packs, where I got some of this other stuff, the cells and whatnot, may sell them. I don't know. I didn't even think to look at the time. I had already ordered these way before I'd ordered any of the other stuff. So at any rate, when you're looking for battery bars, especially if you're buying them off of eBay, the ones that you want for a sub C cell are going to be 2.5 centimeters long, or 25 millimeters long by 3 millimeters wide. So 25 millimeters long by 3 millimeters wide. Now you'll see, and they look like this. They're just little tabs, real pretty thin tabs. They come on eBay. You'll see them advertised as they usually come in lots of 20, and it's either 2 grams worth or 3 grams worth, and they're both the same price. But the 3 gram, the 20 pieces that weigh 3 grams are thicker than the 2 gram ones. That's the ones that I use, or the ones that I usually use. These are actually 2 grams. Somehow I ordered 2 instead of 3 last time. I don't know how, but at any rate, with these 2 gram ones, they're a little bit too thin for my liking. So what I'm going to be doing is soldering 2 of these together to make a thicker bar. But typically the 3 gram ones are pretty sufficient for sub-cell sizes. Now there are other battery bars out on the market that look more like this. They look more like this. And These are good. These are really thick, as you can tell, compared to this. These are really thick, and these are really good for making your own packs where you're going to be putting heat shrink, where the cells are like, you know, lengthways in a row, where width really doesn't matter too much. These are nice to use. However, in repacking this style of battery pack, we don't want any extra thickness in there because they're already, the batteries themselves pretty much take up the majority of the room. So we're going to use these. The other thing I forgot to mention was you're going to want some kind of liquid rosin soldering flux. And I know that probably is going to look backwards to you, but any kind of liquid rosin soldering flux, as far as I know, will work. This particular bottle I bought says for electrical and electronic soldering, which is what I'm going to be doing here. So make sure you have these two things. Now I'm going to go on to the next segment, which is about prepping batteries.